In this short video, what we're going to do is use Visual Studio, the 2017 Community Edition, to create an empty C++ project. We'll then put in a very short and very simple program just so that you can see how to populate that project, and then I'll give you a quick rundown on what the code is actually doing. Okay, so we'll get Visual Studio 2017 started. Okay, now that we're in Visual Studio 2017, the Community Edition, if we have a wee look at how it's laid out, you'll see that there's a window. There's a couple of different windows that are there that are important. This one that says Starting Page, when we actually load up our project, that will change, and that will be where you'll see the code. The other window that's of interest to us is down here called Output. And when we go through the compilation process, you'll see what the output screen will give us, or window will give us. And the third one, which is very important to us, is the Solution Explorer. And inside there, it will show you all the files that are related to your project. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start and we'll go File, New Project, and when the dialog box opens, we'll go for Visual C++ if it's not already highlighted, and Empty Project. Okay, now down here we need to give the project a name, so what we're going to do is use dice, or we're going to have a wee dice program. I'm just going to call it dice roll. And the other thing to note is that when you're in the labs, it's very important that that location, you pay attention to that location, because that location is where your projects are going to be stored. And if you want to take them home with you, you're going to have to know where that is, because remember, the machines refresh every night, so it will be deleted. Okay, so pay attention to that. So we'll click OK, and what will happen is that Visual Studio will then create that project space, and it will populate it with certain folders that are of interest to us. Okay, so you'll see there that now we've got a different view of what's happening. So in the Solution Explorer, you will see that your solution is called Dice Roll. That's what I typed in when it asked me for a project name. And it's got a subsequent folder called Dice Roll, and inside that folder it has references, external dependencies, header files, resource files, and source files. Now, for the moment and for the majority of what we're going to do with the labs, then the ones that we're most interested in are header files and source files. And in this particular instance, we're not really that bothered too much with header files, because we're only going to do a one file project here. It's going to be very short. So in order to add the CPP file that we need to add, we'll go to Resources, right click, say Add, New Item. We're faced with another dialog box. Hopefully it says Visual C++, and in here we want the C++ file, and it's got a CPP extension. Okay, we'll deal with header files later on when we come to do some of the later labs. So again, we need to name it, and you'll see there that it's got a .cpp extension. We'll just call it Dice Roll, as we did before. Again, you've got a location, so if you want to know where this file is stored, then pay attention to that location, because it's quite important. And we'll click Add. Now when we click Add, you'll see that in the Solution Explorer we've got diceroll.cpp, and over here what we've got in this area is the blank empty file waiting to be populated. Okay, now you'll notice that I've got a couple of these symbols there. These are related basically to Git, because this project file is running under Git, so I have version control running on here, but we'll talk about that later, and there are some videos that you can watch that I've highlighted that will hopefully be of use. Okay, now with that open, we're going to put in some code. So I've got code here for a small, well, it says dice game, but it's not really. It's just using random number generation to simulate the roll of a dice. Okay. Now, what we need to do with this code as it stands is we need to build it, and that will generate the subsequent .exe file that will allow us to run this code that we've created. Okay, it's a .exe file because we're using Windows here. Okay, so I'm going to go to build. I'm going to say build solution. Now, when I do that, you'll see that the window down here, the output window, changes. You'll see that diceroll.cpp is the file that's currently getting built, and you'll see then that once it's subsequently built, it produces this diceroll.exe, and it's the diceroll.exe that actually gets run by Windows. Okay, so what we've gone through here is we've gone through a compilation process, then we've gone through a linking process where it's linked into the different libraries, and then it's built the subsequent .exe file that should run. So we can see as well that we've got the build process has succeeded. In other words, it's built the code, nothing failed, nothing up to date, and nothing skipped. So now that we've got that, what we can do is we can run it, and to run it, what we'll do is we'll just hit the big green button up here, which will run the local Windows debugger. Now, this is a console program that we've created, so what you'll see is we'll get basically an old console screen will come up like the command prompt, essentially. So when we click that, up will come this command window, and it'll ask us, or it'll tell us first of all that we rolled a 6. Do we want to roll again? So I'm going to say yes. We'll get another 6, and we'll roll again, this time a 2, a 1, and a 4. Okay, and now I'm going to say no. So I press an N, that'll stop the program. It tells us to press any key to continue. When I do that, what will happen is that this window will disappear. Okay, so that's it disappeared, and that's our program, it's run. You'll also notice that your output window has a lot of information again at the bottom here, and you'll see that diceroll.exe has exited with code 0. Now that code 0, I'll explain where that comes from in a wee minute. Basically what it means is that nothing went wrong with the program, it basically functioned as we wanted it to. We'll quickly go over the code. You'll see that in line 1 we have a comment. There are different ways to put comments in. You can use 2 forward slashes as I have done in line 1, or you can use a forward slash and a star, which has to be terminated by a similar construction. You can see that in line 3. The beauty of using it this way, if you look at lines 12 and 13, you can split lines quite happily over multiple lines, okay, which can be quite useful. So first thing we've got here is 3 and 4. At lines 3 and 4 we've got includes, and the includes allow us to take in extra functionality from libraries that already exist. So IOStream just allows us to basically have functions that will allow us to display things on the screen, and it will allow us to take information from the keyboard. So it's input, output, stream. Random is where we're going to get the functionality to generate the random numbers, and I'll show you where they are in a minute or two. Again, as we mentioned in the first lecture, using namespace std just allows us to use the standard namespace. We have 2 variables in this program. We've got one on line 8 called iDie, okay, which is singular for dice, and it's an integer. Okay, so it means it will only store whole numbers, integer numbers. Line 10, we have a character variable called keypressed. Now, note that that's a character, not a string. Okay, they're different things, and especially in C++, you know, you'll run into real difficulty if you try and confuse them, or you get them confused. So line 15 is the interesting one. This is our main program. This is the main part of our program, and although this one's very basic, it's only got one part to it. The thing about a C++ program is that there is only what we call one entry point into a C++ program, and it's through main. Okay, you can't duplicate this function anywhere else. If you do, the compiler will not like it, and it will tell you that it can't compile the code because you have more than one entry point. Okay, so it's very important this again, when we come to do windows in subsequent labs and we do more graphical information, you'll see that main will change from main to win main. Okay. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that it says int main, and that means that this main function will return a value, and that value will be an integer number. And you'll see in output at the moment it says, the very last line says program diceroll.exe has exited with code 0, and that code 0 comes from line 29 where it says return 0. And what that means is that our program has successfully went through all the lines of code that we wanted it to, and it has completed naturally. Okay, it's basically finished of its own accord with no errors. So next, if we have a wee look at lines 17 to 20, what we're doing there is we are using things that are available to us from the random library to generate essentially random numbers. So what we're doing is, first of all, where RD is a variable based on random device, and that's going to generate a non-deterministic engine. That engine needs seeded, and we do that using this generate command, and it generates this random device. So what happens is that we use this Mersenne twister engine, which is relatively fast and high quality, and it will do for most of the kind of things that we are doing just now. Okay, it's just an algorithm. There are different types of deterministic algorithms used to create random numbers, but this is the kind of basic and the best one. We don't need to know what it does because we're not doing maths. We just simply know that it's there and that we're going to use it. Line 20, what this does is it creates a uniform distribution, and all we're really saying there is how many different random numbers do you want? What is the range for your random numbers? Now, if you look at this, you'll see that we've got 1 to 6, and if you think about a dice, then a dice has 1 to 6 numbers on it. So we're fixing the range as 1 to 6. Okay, you'll notice that these are integer numbers, so there's no fractional part to them, because you don't get 1.5 on a dice, you get 1 to 6 on a conventional dice, I should clarify. Okay, now once we've got these components, we need to put them together in order to generate the random number. So on line 23, we've got idi equals dis gen. Dis just is the distribution, gen is how we generate it, and we're saying essentially go away and pick me a number between 1 and 6, and that generates our random number. Now you'll see that at line 22 we've got a do while loop, and a do while loop essentially is a post conditioned loop. That means that this loop will always execute once. Okay, so it will always execute once. So what will happen is that when we start, it will come in at line 23, it will generate the random number, it will then go to line 24 where it says cout, and you can see that cout is part of the IO stream, and essentially what that's doing is it's just going to take the text from the string and the contents of the variable idi, and it's going to display them on the screen. So you've got cout, and then notice the way that the chevrons are going. You rolled A, and then it will take the value of idi and it will put it onto the screen. /n just means that it's essentially a new line. Okay, and then the next line cout, it will ask you if you want to try again, and again it will do a /n, which is just a new line. Now what we're going to do at line 26 is we're going to use cin, which will allow us to look at the input stream, and it will effectively allow us to get information from the keyboard and store it inside the variable C key pressed. And at line 27 we will check the value of C key pressed to see if it equals either a lowercase y, or, which is what these two bars mean, or a capital Y. Note also that because we're doing a comparison, it is a double equals that we're using because it's a comparison. Okay, bear that in mind. It's usually one place where you can